The word niche, or niche if you're American, is a bit of a buzzword for anyone trying to do pretty much anything on the internet at the moment.
We're talking about niching down.
Your niche is you, the human.
It's important to narrow down your niche.
We all have to view ourselves through this lens of personal brand, right? Who's your audience? How are you going to attract them? And what does that say about you? And it's a piece of advice that's kind of everywhere for photographers at the moment. Anyone that's trying to sell more prints, get more views on Instagram, or even just become a better photographer, the key bit of information you seem to get is that you need to find your niche. But is finding your niche actually good advice? Do you need a niche to be a good photographer, or is it something that can actually stifle your progress? In this video, I want to help you decide that for yourself. Let's start by talking about what a photography niche even is. If we take photography as this big umbrella term, a niche is basically the thing under that umbrella that you do. It's a way of paring down the type of photography that you do. You've got outdoor photographers, landscape photographers, street photographers, event photographers, sports photographers, wedding photographers, real estate photographers. There's like an endless list of the type of photographer that you can be. So if you regularly take pictures of mountains and lakes, chances are you're a landscape photographer or an outdoor photographer. If you're always in the studio taking pictures of people, chances are you're a portrait photographer, right? And you're probably using classifications like this in your photography already. It might be the top line of your Instagram bio, it might be on your portfolio website, whatever it is. You kind of will have subconsciously picked a niche and a direction of the way you want to go with photography, right? Or if you're watching this video, you may well be considering it. And if you're in the business of photography, that is to say, if you're trying to make money from your photography, a niche can be really important. It allows you to say, this is the kind of photographer I am, this is the type of photography that I do. If you're interested in that, come and work with me, right? If you want to be a wedding photographer, you can't have a portfolio that's full of pictures of your dog, even though the thought of a dog in a wedding dress is pretty hilarious. But once you get outside of the business focus of photography, the information around choosing a niche starts to get a little bit misleading and could actually start to stifle your progress, right? Because let's face it, as much as most of us would like to make money with our cameras, we've really got a good 9-to-5 that treats us well. We go out on the weekends and evenings and on holidays and take pictures, and it just it's more of a creative expression than it is a financial necessity. So to kind of talk through how picking a niche can impact you, let me talk you through a little bit of a story about myself. So when I first started out as a photographer, I bought myself a cheap Sony a6000, a little APS-C camera from the bargain bin at my local electronics store where I was living in Germany at the time. And I declared that from that day forward, I was going to be a street photographer. I took to the streets and I captured amazing images like this one, and this one, and definitely this one. And you can tell that I was a maverick from day one, right? I spent a fortune on books about street photography, and I swore that I was never going to take a photo that didn't look like it could fit in one of these books that I bought. I remember my mum calling me and telling me about this landscape photography trip that she'd read about in the paper that some local lad had been on, and how it would be a great opportunity for me. And I scoffed with a bit of an air of superiority and was like, I would never go out and take pictures of waterfalls. And after time, publishing some of these photos on Instagram, talking about them with my friends or whatever, sharing them at work, I got a message from a colleague who was German and knew the law pretty well and pointed out that some of the images that I was taking were quite likely to be considered illegal and could get me in some serious trouble under German law. Now, there was nothing particularly wrong or lewd about these. Germany just has really strict laws on street photography, and even me putting them on Instagram could be considered like illegal. So that kind of put photography on the back burner for me for a little bit. There was a good few weeks where I couldn't get out and I couldn't take pictures and I couldn't bring myself to do anything that wasn't street photography. It didn't even cross my mind because I was a street photographer. But then I had a holiday to Switzerland coming up and I thought, right, this is my chance. I'm going to get out in the streets, I'm going to go to Geneva and places like that and start to capture pictures. So I did a little bit of research once I got there and discovered that it's somehow even more illegal in Switzerland to take photos. I couldn't take any photos of anybody anywhere at all, and the type of photography that I wanted to do had died very quickly. So I was kind of left with a decision, right? Do I not take any pictures anymore? Do I put my camera away and never use it? Or for the next 2 weeks, do I focus on the incredible scenery that's in Switzerland and all the beautiful mountains around me? And thankfully, I came to my senses and thought, right, well, I'll just take pictures of all the landscapes around me. And honestly, I fell in love with it. Taking photos in Switzerland was absolutely incredible. I couldn't think of a nicer place to start your landscape photography journey. And when I came back from that trip, I was a landscape photographer through and through. Street photography was dead to me. And you might be noticing a bit of all or nothing in my personality, but that's genuinely what I thought. I couldn't take to the streets anymore. Some of it was illegal anyway. So I became a landscape photographer. And then I went a few months without taking any pictures. Life got busy, work got busy. And it was honestly a solid 3 months before I got out and took pictures again. And that's not good for your progression as a photographer, especially not in your first year or two of taking pictures. So I kind of one day realized how long it had been since I'd taken a photo, and I decided, right, I need to get out and take pictures again. So I took to the streets, I took some pictures, tried not to capture anything illegal, and I loved it. And I enjoyed just having my camera in my hand. And I realized that this niching down, this telling myself I am this kind of photographer, I am that kind of photographer, really started to stifle my progress. And actually there were things that I learned as a street photographer that made me a much better landscape photographer. And there were things that I learned as a landscape photographer that when I take to the streets makes it a lot easier for me to get good photos and work on compositions. And since then I've taken pictures of portraits and cars and this and that and the other, and I've tried loads of different types of photography and I absolutely love it. I'm a huge believer in creative restrictions making you a better photographer. I'm always trying stuff like shooting at certain focal lengths, only shooting at certain times of the day, and really restricting the types of photographs that I can take to see what kind of creative solutions I come up with. And I guess you can kind of consider a niche as a creative restriction, saying I only take these types of photos and I want to get better at them, and you could apply creative restrictions within that as well. And if you're incredibly passionate about a certain area, like if you really love going out and only taking pictures of lakes and mountains, and you want to be a landscape photographer, you do you, this video is not to knock that. However, I do think that a lot of us just love having our camera in our hands, and there are so many things that we want to take photographs of, and this pressure of finding a niche can really start to stifle your creativity. And realistically, if you go back into sort of the pre-internet days, right, pre-Instagram, pre-Facebook, wherever anyone was publishing their photos online, lots of famous photographers dabbled in lots of different styles of photography. So a great example would be someone like Henri Cartier-Bresson, who has kind of been adopted in the modern age as a street photographer. But if you go through his book Masterworks and look at the best images from his portfolio, only a few of them are street photographs, right? He has great images of people like the French philosopher Albert Camus. He has great landscape shots, like this picture here, where these trees almost look like a love heart. And he was a big believer in taking different types of photos and not worrying about things being sharp all the time and challenging the status quo and what people thought you should do with a camera. He was lots of different types of photographers. And I think we all have that in us. So when should you niche down? When is it actually practical for you to start niching down your photography and pick that photography niche that you've gone looking for? Well, to understand that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Greeks and the Romans, right? And that might seem like a bit of an odd tangent. But the Greeks and Romans had this thing about procrastination, and they viewed it very positively. They would procrastinate on decisions and committing to things until the last possible minute. They wanted all the information that they could get, so explored every avenue and see what came up and then choose their thing right at the last minute. And I believe picking your niche should be treated the same. If you need to start making money right away from photography, then you need to choose a niche and niche the hell out of it. Go deep into it and show that you can provide value there. That's the latest possible time that you can niche down with that, right? But if this is still more of a creative expression and this is more about a hobby and art than it is about making money, then wait, and wait as long as you possibly can. There's a great book about being a generalist that I highly recommend you go and read. But what I really want to say with this video is try lots of different things. Try lots of different types of photography. Try product photography, try macro photography, try landscape photography, try outdoor photography, try any other kind of photography that you can think of and see what you like, see what you don't like, and learn from all of these different disciplines, right? And you will find things that you're passionate about and find things that you don't like. I recently went on a trip to Iceland and there was a guy there from London who it was his first ever time doing landscape photography. And he thought if he's going to try it, he's going to try it in the best possible place to do it. He's going to have a professional photographer with him to help him learn it. And if he doesn't like it, he won't do it again. And by the end of the trip, he didn't like it, but he knew. And clearly the guy had a little bit of cash because it's a lot of money to spend on learning whether you do or don't like something. There's a great author called Neil Gaiman who talks about the concept of where good ideas come from.
Most of all, I think ideas come from confluence. They come from two things flowing together. They come from essentially from daydreaming.
If you want to be creative, if you want to be a good photographer, you need to expose yourself to all of these different inputs, all of these different ways of doing things, and see which dots connect so you can come up with your unique style. Otherwise, you end up with this homogenized version of street or landscape or event or whatever kind of photography that just looks like everyone else's. So be a generalist, go wide, cast your net wide until you feel that it's time for you to go deep. And then when you find something you're passionate about that you really want to focus on, go deep on it. Get everything you can out of it, learn every technique, but always remember that you can come back out